Welcome back, everybody. Over the last couple decades, I've always turned to Open the Books as an incredible source for transparency about how your and my tax dollars are spent, both at the national, federal level and at the state level. And that's because it's been run by two extraordinary men. The late Adam Andrzejewski got it started, and today, the CEO and great investigator, I've known him for many years, John Hart, runs Open the Books, and we're glad to welcome him to the show. John, great to have you back.
Good to be back on, John. Happy to do it.
All right. So last time we had you on, we got depressed learning about how much money California lifeguards were making. But now I think we might get a little depressed about how much taxes may have to go up in the city of New York if Zoran Mamdani's affordability agenda goes into them. In other words, it's a communist agenda where the government's going to pay and control everything. Tell us what you know. Does New York have deep enough pockets to pull off what he wants to do?
Well, I don't think anyone's pockets are deep enough, John, but let me just set the tone here. Open the Books, we're a first principles organization. Our mission is to speak truth to power, and we've known each other for a long time, and we're equal opportunity critics. Is that, we're willing to go after Republicans if they're spending too much money, and the same is absolutely true with Democrats. So my critique of Zoran Mamdani is not based on the color of his jersey, but what the data tells us. And John, the lesson from history, this important teaching moment, shows very, very clearly that the best way to make something expensive is for government to make it affordable. That, I believe, is the story that is shown in the data that we've collected at Open the Books, but it isn't just our data, it's really true throughout history. And let's look at a little lesson of over the past 20 years, when government has gotten involved in major sectors of the economy, like healthcare and education, there's no secret that the quality of the services has gone way up in terms of cost. So hospital services over the past 20 years, 200% increase in cost. Education and tuition, over 175% increase. Food and beverage has almost doubled. There's lots of subsidies for that in the ag sector. Housing has gone up 75%. Again, all of these things the government says are going to be more affordable have become more expensive. Meanwhile, areas that have not been overregulated or overly subsidized, like new cars, have gotten a little bit cheaper. Cell phone services has gotten about 50% cheaper. And a good one is televisions. When you go through Best Buy or any big store, it's amazing how much TV you can get for your dollar compared to 10 or 20 years ago. And where have the subsidies been for those new TVs? Well, there haven't been. And so the point is that the market and free people allocate scarce resources far more efficiently than government. So again, we have this teaching moment. We have a candidate in New York City, Zoran Mamdani, who is pledging to make things affordable, but his real policy proposals is just more and more government subsidy and more top-down command and control governance. So he wants to make our sanctuary city, he actually wants to strengthen, in his words, New York City's sanctuary city laws, which will make housing and all forms of services more expensive. He wants to restrict, and he's in the past he said he wants to defund the police. Well, that is going to make policing far more expensive. And he wants to do this by raising taxes in areas that he has described as richer and wider. So that's the agenda that he's running on. And John, these are not new ideas in history. We've seen this play before. We saw it in the Soviet Union. We saw it during the Cold War. And sadly, I think this generation is going to have to relearn that lesson. So if I would give you an optimistic note, I think the lesson is going to lead to the same point, is that the best way to make something expensive is for government to make it affordable.
I don't know how targeting certain areas based on the color of most people's skin in that area is not overt racism by New Yorkers. But at any rate, I want to ask you about some of these things that are a part of his affordability agenda. A rent freeze, free buses, obviously the government-run grocery stores, $30 minimum wage. What happens when the city can no longer pay for this, or do you think that they will even get instituted to begin with?
Well, look, I think what's going to happen is if these policies actually go into effect, and I think some of them will, we're going to see an exodus that is already happening really accelerate. And so I give a lot of credit to my friends at ALEC, Jonathan Williams. They've done the rich states, poor states. We'd love to do a study called Rich Cities, Poor Cities. And I think it's going to lead to the same conclusion, is that when you overly tax, overly regulate certain states, but I guess true of cities as well, what you see is a declining tax base. And so you can try to increase taxes, but the problem with socialism, as Margaret Thatcher so aptly put it, is that eventually you run out of other people's money. So there won't be any taxpayers to tax to fund all these free grocery stores, free busing, free tuition, free childcare, and just the list goes on and on. Is that, again, these ideas of wanting to help lower income people comes from it's a very emotionally appealing, right? But it's counterfeit compassion. Everyone wants to see lower income people do better. But the way to do that is to allow bottom up innovation, not use top down command and control legislative proposals that are going to increase taxes and actually disproportionately hurt lower income people. In New York City, for example, the wait times for 9/11 calls have gone up dramatically because they haven't properly funded the police. Well, how does that make anything more affordable? It makes the cost of doing business more expensive. It creates untold human suffering. And so, again, we know how the story unfolds. And sadly, I think New York City, if he's elected, is going to have to relearn these lessons again.
Yeah, and we only got about 30 seconds. Well, give us an update just on where the city is before you even start spending this money. It's like $10 or $13 billion in debt, right? In the red.
Yeah, there's a huge shortfall of New York City's. I think it's 16 billion.
Wow.
So far in that city. And look, there's the other part of the story, just real quickly, is there, I wrote a book called The Debt Bomb with Tom Coburn, okay, about the federal debt. But you have debt bombs all over, particularly blue states, where there's unfunded pension programs that when the bill comes due, it's going to have incredibly negative effects, again, on middle and lower income people disproportionately.
Yeah, it is a ticking time bomb, and it's much larger than people know. John Hart, everybody go check out the amazing work he does at Open the Books. Great to have you on, my friend. Thanks for joining us tonight. All right, 16 billion, Amanda. Yikes. Whoa, wow. And that's just one city. Wow, yeah, I wonder why we're in a debtor nation. Yep. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more and more parents are rethinking sending their children to expensive DEI-riddled Northeastern universities. Where are they going instead? They're going to reveal that answer next.